those of you who don't know me, I'm Yolanda Jameson. I live in Northridge, California, and I'm the owner of Sew Contagious. And so on a normal basis, what I do is teach kids sewing. I host birthday parties, we do Girl Scout workshops, and I also have online sewing classes that I do. And so now with the state of the world being the way it is, I've had a lot of requests for face masks or tutorials or things like that. So bear in mind, I am not a doctor. This is the first time I've ever made a face mask. So I did what many of you would do. I looked at a few tutorials on YouTube and just sort of put a couple together that I like. So I have two different kinds here. So I'm going to go over them with you and show you how I did them. This is the way I'm doing them. Like I said, I'm not a doctor. Keep in mind, I am not an expert. I do know as far as fabric choices because I've had questions on that. So you want to make sure you have a cotton fabric or a cotton blend fabric that has a tight weave to it. You don't want anything, that's really loose that, you can see through too easily when you put it up to the light, because the tighter the weave, the better it's going to be in blocking out particles. So if you think of like a quilting fabric or sheeting, something you'd use for sheets. So like all of these are cotton fabrics. All of this, it's either 100% cotton or a cotton blend. And then, you just need some elastic. And so the thinner the elastic, the better. I use what I have on hand. I think probably a 1/8 of an inch, or the one I have here is probably about maybe 3/8 of an inch, so almost half an inch wide. But I have to use what I have, obviously, because I can't go to the store. Okay, so let me flip this around and I'm going to show you the ones that I'm doing. Okay, let's see if this doesn't work. I'll have to go get somebody to hold the camera for me. Okay. All right, so this first one that I'm going to work on, I just cut a piece of fabric here that is, I've seen a couple videos, so I cut mine. This one is from Joann. So Joann's Fabric has a tutorial up there. And so I did that one, and then I kind of mixed it in with like another one I saw. So I have a piece of fabric. Joann's, they cut it 12 inches long by 9 inches wide. And so I want to be able to leave a little opening in mine at the top so that you can add an additional filter, because I've seen some like that. So I just cut mine a little longer. So this piece is 12.5 inches long and it's 9 inches wide. And so then if you fold it in half, so basically I cut out a piece of interfacing and pressed it just onto one side. So it's not the entire thing, it's just on one side because I'm trying to stretch out this interfacing. So I applied some fusible interfacing here, and what that'll do is just give it a little bit more shape, and then it actually adds an extra layer of protection. So let me show you how I did this one. Oh, and also you need 2 pieces of elastic that are 7 inches long. And like I said, this part here, this is really the Joann's tutorial. I didn't come up with this myself. I've never made a mask, so I'm just, we're all sort of scrambling, trying to figure out what to do here. Okay, let me grab my sewing machine. Oh, and what I did on here, because I know I want to leave an opening, I went ahead and finished my edges on the serger here. So here and here. And if you're thinking, you want to do this and you don't know how to sew and you've never sewn before, like I said, I have online courses. I think my daughter will probably post a link for me. But I have online courses on Teachable. And so if you go on there, you at least learn, like there are tons of freebies on there. You can learn how to make a pillow. You'll learn how to at least thread your machine. It'll help get you started so that you are able to do some of these if you want to. I think it's a good thing. It helps us to kind of pass the time and do something, because I think we're all feeling, sort of powerless here. So at least this will help you kind of pass the time. And for me, I finally get to use some of all this fabric I have. So it's the one time where it's paying off that I have all of this stuff. Okay, yeah, she posted it. Thanks, Raven. So it's at Teachable. Okay, so like I said, for the rectangle one, that's 12.5 inches by 9. This is just the one I'm doing. I am going to fold it in half first. and I went ahead and finished off the edges just because I know I want to leave an opening. And if you're not leaving an opening, you don't need to do that. So I'll probably sew 2 inches in from either side and leave an opening here in the middle, just so, you know, I've heard that you could, you know, put in a coffee filter, or maybe they have a filter that they can use. I believe 2 layers of 2-ply toilet paper. Like, I don't know, toilet paper is so hard to come by, so I guess you have to decide. But fortunately, you know, we were actually able to find quite a bit, so we're good. So I'm going to stitch from here to here, and then from this end to this end. And I want to leave the middle open so that if someone wants to insert their own filter, they can. Okay, I'll stop here and then I'll do a back stitch. Okay, and then I'm going to start where my other pin is. Okay, start, do your back stitch. Okay, and I know I want this opening here so that someone can insert a filter. Like normally at this point, I would go to the ironing board and press this down. But for the sake of this video, I won't. I'll just go ahead. I'm going to sew this in place, this opening edge here. But normally I would, you know, go press it down. So you just kind of maneuver it into your machine if you want to. You don't necessarily have to because my edges are finished here. Let's see. Like for me, I'm like, okay, it looks nicer if I do that, and I don't have to worry about that edge coming up. So this is just my opening that I'm just going to sew into place. Okay. Oh, Jessica, you're welcome. I think we're all just trying to get through this the best way we can. No one saw this coming, but it's here and we have to deal with it, and you know, this is character building. Just pray everyone, you know, stay safe and follow the guidelines so we can get past this. Okay, so that's the end of my opening on that side. So I'm just going to turn and go the other way. Okay, that's that. Okay, so all I did was the opening that I left, I just basically did a top stitch to keep it really in the inside, just so it looks nicer to whoever is receiving it. So that's how it looks on the outside. Okay, so now I want to turn it back to the wrong side because I want to put the elastic in it and sew the sides down. These threads always drive me crazy, so I know you probably won't see them, and I could wait to the end, but I tend to be a little OCD, I think. Okay, now I want to insert my elastic, but this opening that I left so that it's not all the way at the top, what I'm going to do see which way should it go. Guess it really doesn't matter. So the opening that I left though, so like I said, rather than just folding it so that your seam is at the top, I want this opening to be to the inside so, you don't see it really. So I'm just going to turn it slightly. So just fold it in some and then I'll sew it down. So I'm just going to put a pin here for now because I have to insert my elastic. So just to show you what I'm doing. So it would be stitched like this. Okay. But before you stitch it, you want to take your elastic. So I have 2 pieces of elastic that I've cut that are 7 inches long. Okay. And you just want your elastic all the way in this corner, as close as you can get it. And then you just kind of have to feel for it and, make sure your elastic isn't twisted. So slide that into there and add a pin. And then I'll just kind of look forward and make sure I'm not twisted. Okay. Okay, so that's one in. Dawn. Hi, Dawn. Dawn and I worked together at Robinson's May. Long time ago. And she has 4 beautiful daughters. Okay, the other side. You want to put your elastic in. Just slide it all the way in there. Ignore my nails. They are shot, and it's just going to have to be that way. I may end up just having to cut them down and start over. But you know what? That's the least of my concerns right about now. Okay, let's feel for your elastic and make sure it's not twisted. Ellen Carpenter. Hello, Ellen. Thanks for watching. Like I said, bear in mind, I am not the face mask expert. I looked at a couple YouTube videos or just saw videos on Instagram, just like everyone else, and I just sort of put a couple together and, decided what I like best. Okay, so my elastic is in place in my corner here and here and on the other side. And so now you just do a stitch along the side. And the Joann's tutorial, both tutorials I saw, they, normally when you're sewing, you have a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance that's allowed on sewing patterns. For these, they are, with the measurements they have, it's a narrow seam allowance. So use more of a, say, a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'll start here at the corner. Do a back stitch. And you can see I have a very narrow seam here. Okay, then my other side. I think this is my selvage, so I'm actually going to come over a little bit more so that I don't, well, it's still yellow. Sometimes your selvage is white, so you have to make sure you're, farther enough on the other side of it so that you don't see the white part. But mine is the same color as my fabric, so I'm good. And the sad part is this would be a good project for me to do with the kids in my sewing class, but I can't see them. Just sort of, if I was having sewing class, obviously I guess we wouldn't be doing this, but I'm hoping I can get some of them to do this at home. Okay, so we sewed the side of it, and like normally when you have a corner, you want to cut it on an angle, so that'll help it lay flatter. But because our seams are so narrow, I don't necessarily need to do that. So I'm just going to turn it to the right side. Okay, and I have a pointer here somewhere. Okay, so this I use to just kind of help me get my corners out good if my nails don't do it. And I have, like, anytime I buy fabric anyway, you know, unless it's like a sequin or, you know, I don't know, fur or something like that. Even with fur, I kind of tend to wash them and let them air dry. But with fabrics, and especially this time, everything is pre-washed and dried. But I know, you know, when they get them, you know, obviously you want to wash it again. But I do pre-wash and dry everything before I sew it. So what I'm going to do now, I've turned it to the right side. So I'm just going to do a top stitch along the opening edge so that the back of it looks like this. So if I do a top stitch, that'll help that to lay down flat. Oh, thanks, Ellen. Telling you, girl, we're all just trying to figure this out. And I'm so grateful I have sewing to keep me distracted. Okay, so this is what the top of it looks like. Can you see that seam? So I just did a stitch along the top. And so then on the back, it looks like this. And then, you know, if someone has additional filters, they can put them in here. So now it's the pleating that we need to do on the side. And I know that Joanne's video has, like, you know, let me see if I can get rid of the shadow, has specific measurements for doing your pleats and all that. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I don't really measure stuff. I just sort of wing it. I think that's the country girl in me, my grandmother. You know, you need about this much. So that's kind of what I do with sewing. Okay, so this is what it looks like now, and it's flat. So I'm just going to start on one end, and I just estimate it. And I'm having my pleats go down. Your pleats could go up. It doesn't make a difference either way, I've seen. Okay, so you want to fold your fabric down like that to create your pleat and put a pin. And I found with these, with the measurements, you end up with about 3 pleats over here. Okay, let's make sure we're straight. You know, if you get to the end and feel like you don't have enough, like I do, I'll start over. So I want them, you know, kind of evenly spaced. So it'll be like that at the end. Okay. Okay, so this is one side. And then just go do your other one and try to make it match the side you just did. Trying to think, I think I want it a little bit wider. So I'll have like my pleats a little bit smaller. Okay, that's good. That way it's a little wider on the sides. Okay, and then just make your other side match. Okay, so I do the top and the bottom, and then I do the middle one. Okay, and then you just want to stitch along the side to stitch your pleats into place. And sometimes it's hard getting across here at the beginning just because of all this thickness here. So usually what I'll do, I'll start about right here and sew down, then I'll come back and go that way. Because sometimes I have an issue and sometimes I don't, but you know, start here. Okay, so now I'll start from here and go that way because I have something I can pull to help me sew. So I'll put it in here and lower my presser foot to, lower my needle, I'm sorry, to line up my stitches. Okay, and just go sew your other side. Let's see, I'll go this way. Took my pen out too soon. No, Ellen, this isn't my first one. This is my first time making masks, but this is probably, I don't know, maybe my 10th one. Okay, now I'm gonna finish up the top here. So I'll cut all my threads off, but so this is what this kind would look like. It's like this in the front. You have your pleats here. The elastic here on these go behind your ears. And then there is an opening here to add an additional filter. And the ones that Joann's made, Joann's Fabric, the only difference is they don't have the opening for the filter. So I don't know if these will help. I know, like I said, they are not N95, the ones that are certified. But I do know there have been lots of requests for these. And hopefully they will help. So I'm planning on doing a bunch so that I can donate, because I have, a few friends here who, either are doctors or nurses or, work in the medical field somehow. And I've asked, would they be helpful? And they say, yeah, because you see a lot of, conflict in stories. Some people are saying they're helpful. Some people are saying you give people false hope. But hospitals are asking for them, so that's the very least I can do. Okay, so you have this kind, and then I will show you the other kind that goes behind your head. So like this one I made. And so this is just one continuous piece of elastic that you put over your face, and, it goes behind your head. So let's find, and this one, Nanette, yes, yeah, it's creative, but I'm telling you, these are not my designs. I went on YouTube and just sort of looked at a few videos and figured it out. And so this one is from actually Mimi G. And so if you go on Mimi G, and she actually sews and has online classes and all of that as well. I guess normally I probably wouldn't be promoting someone else who sews, but that's a non-issue at this point. We're all just trying to help each other. But if you search Mimi G on YouTube, she has a tutorial for this. So I pretty much followed hers. The only difference is I added interfacing in it. And so she has a tutorial, and she actually has a pattern that you can cut out. And so that's what I'm using. Because if someone already has it out there, why reinvent the wheel? If it's working, I'm going to use what someone else is using. It's not a time to think about yourself right now. Okay. So I have my two lining pieces. Oh, thanks, May Lizzie. These are my lining pieces that I have interfaced. So you're going to prepare your lining the same as you would your outside. Let me see if I have an outside piece. I think I sewed them all. Okay, we'll sew this one. Okay, because I started sewing a bunch of them. So when you cut them out, hang on, let me get myself together here. Okay, your lining pieces are going to be smaller. Like if you look at her pattern and if you look at her video, she tells you you're going to cut 2 of your outside fabric and then you cut 2 of your lining fabric. And the lining fabric is going to be shorter than your outside fabric. So I, cut it out and then I just folded it like this to make it shorter to cut up my lining pieces. So you need 2 pieces of your outside fabric, which I'm using this, and then you need 2 pieces of your lining fabric. So like I said, I followed her tutorial. The only thing I did was add interfacing. And so you would prepare them the same way, except that my interfacing is on my lining pieces here. And so you would just put them with right sides together. And same with Mimi G, just as Joann's, you have a really narrow seam allowance here. That's almost like 1/8 of an inch, I think. So just, keep in mind you want narrow seam allowances. If you cut it bigger, then, you may need to, just trim it or whatever you need to do. Maybe you want it bigger, but just bear in mind for the patterns that are there, this is probably about a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm putting it together with my right sides together here. And I am stitching along this curved edge here. So this is my lining, and I have done my outside piece the same way. Let's see, I'll start at the bottom because somehow it seems easier to get started that way. Okay, so it'll end up looking like this, almost like, a bra cup, pretty much. So this is what it looks like when you sew it. And you can go to your ironing board and just press your seam to one side. But for the sake of this, I'm going to keep going. So you want to pin them together. This is my lining. This is my outside fabric. So you want to match up your seams first. So do that and put a pin. Oh, great, Hope. I'm glad your 11-year-old can make it. Yeah, I think this is a great project for kids to be doing because it'll take their minds off of themselves and their problems. And kids, I find, like helping people, So I'm matching up my seams at the top and at the bottom here. Okay, and then what you want to do, your seam is matched up at the top, so you need to sew this top edge. You're sewing here up to that point and across, and then we're going to sew across the bottom. And keep in mind, it's a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance she gave us. Just match this up. Okay, I'm going to start here. Okay, I'm going to go up to my point here, to where my seam is, and then just sort of stop and turn a little bit. That helps me to keep that point. And I did a little back stitch there. Thank you, Nanette. I hope I'm making this easy to understand. Okay, and then we want to stitch across the bottom here. And, just bear in mind, it won't match up because your outside fabric is going to be longer than your lining. It's cut bigger. Okay, do your back stitch. Okay, hang on, I need a sip of water. My husband has sprayed so much Lysol and wipe everything down. That's really gonna make me cough. And I'm normally not a person who likes water, even though I know it's good for you, but you better believe I'm drinking it now. And warm water, I understand, is better. So that's what I have, is warm lemon water. I just drink all day long. So we do that. I talked right through that step. You want to turn it to the right side, is what I just did. Okay, and I'll take my nails and just push out my points here. Okay, and normally I would go to the ironing board and press this into place. Let me get rid of the string for a second. Okay, so it ends up looking like this. This is my lining. My outside fabric is a little longer. So at this point, you would go press it into place, and then your ends here that are left open, or these longer ends that are extended, you want to fold in your seam allowances here. And like I said, you would press this, but I don't want to leave to go to the ironing board. Press this and then fold it down. I'll get it once I sew it. Fold it in. I think she said 3/8 of an inch, but you know me, I almost always wing it. Fold it in and fold it in again. What you are doing is creating a casing for us to insert elastic. So you're turning in your raw edges and then turning it in again. And I believe, like I said, I think she said 3/8. Mine might be a little bit more, but we're good. Okay, so it should look like this when it's pinned. You turn in all of your raw edges. Fold that down and then fold this in. Okay, and then you just want to stitch along your folded edges. Okay, that's one side. Do your other side the same way. And that's it. And you insert your elastic. And like I said, this is a pattern from Mimi G, except I just added interfacing. And on hers, she used 22 inches of elastic. So she just cut a piece that's 22 inches. And her elastic, I think, is, she used a thinner elastic, but like I said, I'm using what I have on hand, which is probably about 3/8 of an inch wide. Like I said, this is one time where me having a bunch of stuff pays off. So all of mine is 3/8 of an inch. And I did go ahead and wash all of this, but like I said, when they get it, they'll do it again. Now I also have this type of just a stretch trim that I may do some like this. And then also if you have this is lingerie elastic, but you could certainly use this. I think this is what Mimi G used in her video. So if you have something like this, that would work as well. Okay, so I went ahead and cut my elastic 22 inches. And I'm just going to take a safety pin so that I can feed it through here. Okay, so you want to come out one end pull it, but don't pull it all the way through. Okay, and just make sure you're not twisted and go over to the other side. Sound like I heard my door open. Who's at my house? Maybe it was a delivery. Okay, so with your two ends now, just want to lap one end over the other, and you stitch your elastic pieces together. And I lap them over probably about half an inch or so. So just think you're losing about an inch to an inch and a half once you lap the ends over. Okay, so it should look like this. And I tend to just do a zigzag stitch to sew my elastic in place, because then that'll help keep the elastic from fraying any as well. Okay, then just go back some. Oh, you are quite welcome, Debbie. Okay, then you can trim all of your threads. And then with this one, there is no top stitching, but if you wanted to, you could certainly, top stitch along the outside here. I'm going to make as many as I possibly can to donate, so I'll be skipping that top stitching step just so I can get them done. And so now you just want to, you don't have to, what I'm going to do is pull my elastic so that the piece that's sewn together, I can have it within my seam. Okay. So it will end up looking like this. And then this you put over your head, and so both these pieces of elastic just go over your head like this. Am I twisted? No, I'm okay. All right. So this one goes over your head, and it looks like this and covers up your entire mouth and nose. And then the other one, where's the other one? This one, you put it over your mouth and nose, and it goes behind your ears. And I've seen some videos where I did my top stitching there, they did another stitch and they inserted wire, like a twist tie from, the grocery store when you're in the produce department, those twist ties you use for the bags. They would have inserted one of those so that once you put it on, you can kind of cinch it onto your nose. But I know I'm not going to have enough twist tie, so I didn't do that. I just left an opening so that you could add an additional filter. I think that is it. So if you guys have any additional questions, like I said, this one is from Mimi G, so you can go on YouTube and find her video to do it. Let me switch around really quickly. Okay. So you could go on YouTube to find Mimi G's video and follow hers to do this one. Or like I said, this one is from Joann's Fabric. But if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. Just let me know and I'll help you out the best way I can. Bear in mind, I'm not an expert, not a doctor, never been to medical school, never want to go to medical school. I like sewing and creating and making pretty stuff. But this is where we find ourselves right now, so we're all just doing the best we can. I think that's it. If you have any questions, like I said, by all means, let me know. Stay safe, everybody. Stay at home. Oh, thank you, Nina. You stay safe as well. Someone's at the door. Okay, they need to go away. You're welcome, Sally. That's it. So like I said, you have any other questions, let me know. I will help you out the best way I can. You can ask them in here. ask them within, here, or you can always like click on the link and email me or something like that if you have a specific question, or if it's something in the video you don't understand. I'm more than happy to go over it with you again, like just do another live video explaining it to you, because God knows we got the time on our hands right now. So stay well, everybody. I'm praying for all of us. We'll get through this. Stay safe. See you later.